Back to Max and Stacy Report. I'm Max Kaiser. Time now to turn to Dan Collins. He's an independent analyst of all things China and macroeconomics. He's been a businessman living in China for 20 years before returning to the U.S. recently. Dan, welcome back.
Great to be here, Max. Nice to see you.
All right, Dan, let's start with Europe as you are there at the moment. For the first time in 20 years, the euro is worth less than $1. And a long, cold winter lies ahead. What's going on? What do you see on the ground? And how does this all fit into the Mackinder doctrine of how geopolitics operates?
Yeah, Max, I'm speaking to you here from Belgrade, Serbia. Nice little country, non-EU. I'm taking a tour here now through Oslo, down to Berlin, Budapest, and now a few weeks here in Serbia. What we see here now in Europe is really the calm before the storm. So the Russia-Ukraine war and all of the responses from the West has created a split now in Europe. It's separated the agricultural and oil supplier from the manufacturing countries, and particularly Germany. Euro, as you mentioned, has hit parity. It's now 1-to-1. Many people are expecting that it's going to move another 20% in the negative for the euro. So there's nothing propping this euro up. As you know, you covered it from the beginning. ECB's been printing money since the great financial crisis. Italian bond rates are going up over 4% today, highest since 2014. Today, as we speak, Europe has negative benchmark rate of minus 0.5%. That's in the face of 10% inflation. They're about to come into a winter. Now, I'm not talking about Serbia. Serbia here has great gas rates from the Russians. So do Hungary. But Central Europe and Germany, North Europe, these guys have been cut off. Nord Stream 2 has been shut down. They canceled Nord Stream 2. They're draining oil reserves and gas reserves as we speak. Corporate Germany is begging and pleading. They're going to shut down. When these guys shut down, when you restart, you may have equipment break. So all of these factories of Germany Inc. run off natural gas, which they no longer have. And you can't buy wood stoves now in Germany. People are like trying to stack firewood. It's to the point of ridiculous at this point. European governments are driving the continent off a cliff.
Yeah, the U.S. froze $630 billion in Russian reserves. Again, put this into the context of the Mackinder doctrine analysis of geopolitics. And how do you think that is playing out in China, which holds trillions in U.S. dollar reserves and assets?
So the Mackinder doctrine has been realized as of this point, the last couple of years. Probably go back to February 24th. The whole dollar system broke. The COVID, we printed 40% of the world's currency during COVID. Something broke this time. So normally that money goes out to the world and it comes back to America and Europe in the form of goods. And everyone else, they call the US and Europe now the golden billion. You're seeing the BRICS nation are saying no more. We're not going to sell our oil around 100. The Mackinder doctrine is basically the concept that you cannot let Eurasia unite into one power. It instantly becomes the central global power, turning America into kind of a backwater. It would basically turn Western Europe into a Venice. When the Portuguese found trade routes around Africa, Venice became a backwater. The new Mackinder's heartland is Russia, plus China, plus Iran, plus Central Asia, plus India, which is in the BRICS, plus Brazil even, plus Egypt's now trying to go into the BRICS. Saudi Arabia is going into the BRICS. Saudi Arabia, 25% of their oil is now sold to China. They sell 3% to the United States. The United States is no longer a customer of theirs. So the Eurasian heartland has combined and it's bringing the global South with it in a block against the West.
In 2013, China began their Belt and Road Initiative, where they outplayed the U.S. petrodollar system by investing their dollar reserves into expanding their own economic reach. This, in turn, set in motion a Cold War between the U.S. and China. Where does that situation look like today in this era where nations' assets can be frozen?
Yeah, absolutely. So China saw this coming. I mean, this day was going to come. They stopped adding to their treasuries back in 2018. They haven't bought a new Boeing airplane since 2017. We are in a major crisis in terms of the China market. China's 50% of the global market in a lot of things now. EVs, it's 50%. Global aviation, it's going to be 50% of the market within a decade. And we are losing that market, and we've lost a lot of it now because the deep state in the United States continues to play games and make China an enemy at points it doesn't need to. So we always kept saying, well, China, yeah, your economy is really strong, and we're dependent on you for all these manufactured goods, but we have the global Navy, okay? China went out and built the Navy. It's now 25% larger than the United States. And they did the Belt and Road, which is to bring Iranian resources and connect Europe to China, and also take all that excess steel capacity and building capacity and spread it out over into global influence around the rest of the world. You may have noticed the United States has now announced their own form of kind of a Belt and Road where they're going to try to build infrastructure. Good luck, because they can't even fix the roads in the United States. We'll see how that works in foreign countries, but that's where the Belt and Road is. They're having issues. A lot of China's allies, like Sri Lanka, are melting down. Nothing to do with the Belt and Road, really, but there's just global unrest everywhere. Today it's Sri Lanka. Tomorrow it's Pakistan. Mark my words, watch Pakistan this year. That is a massive country. They've already ousted the prime minister. When the food and the cheap LNG is no longer available, we're really going to see fireworks here this year and next year.
Right, here's a headline that caught my eye, Dan. China's on the verge of a violent debt jubilee. How's this going to play out if these mortgage holders don't pay down their mortgages?
Well, China, under COVID, the zero COVID policy, you can't expect an economy to do well when everyone's locked in their apartments, and it just keeps going on and on and on. The economy is probably the worst it's been in 25, 30 years. What they're doing is there's kind of revolt against unfinished projects. So not current mortgages, but projects in China. You usually buy a project, an apartment, 2 years before it's actually done. And now with COVID and all the real estate, I'd call it a mini crisis in China. Projects aren't getting finished. So people are like, okay, I'm not paying my mortgage. All in all, China's come out, they said it's a very small percentage of mortgages. Keep in mind, Chinese have $1 trillion in home equity. Homes used to be $50,000. They're now $2 million. So we have yet to see massive price drawdowns in China. That may happen. We'll see. There's still a real economy focused on real production. They've said $1 trillion in infrastructure, which they probably don't need. You're going to get some overbuilding. The interesting news that leaked this week on China is they may be missing 200 million people. So they may actually only have a population now of 1.2 billion, not 1.4 billion. I went through these leaked data numbers. I can't verify it, but from what I know in China, I know hundreds of people I know. I know 1 or 2 people that have 2 kids. Most people have 1 kid, and a huge percentage of population don't have any kids now. So I believe the replacement rate is 0.73, 0.75, way under replacement. They could be missing 200 million people already, aging really fast. And the commodity super cycle that China created 20 years ago, where they built 100 new New York cities, they used the same amount of concrete in 3 years, and the United States using 100. That's probably over. They don't need to build out like this anymore. So they're going to continue to work to transition their economy, but there is big trouble in little China in the real estate sector. Finally, after 30 years of just unending growth, you see bank runs. Some of these banks are running into trouble. They've been promising 6% risk-free returns for year after year after year, and now with the economy stalling, it's catching up to some people. So we'll see how it all gets restructured.
Okay, continuing with China here. China's COVID policy continues with extreme lockdowns. We've seen some bank runs in one region of China where apparently a bank was run like a Ponzi and stole citizens' savings. What can you tell me about the supply chain situation in China and the shadow banking system?
Supply chain is still, it's touch and go, but it's actually quite strong. Chinese exports to the United States are up 33% in the last 2 years. They're kind of the last game in town on a lot of manufactured products, especially now with the European situation. Germany Inc. is not going to be able to manufacture things. So their natural gas is now 800% higher than the United States. They are at a crisis point where there may be no coming back to. And that just falls into China's hands, because China's going to get all this cheap energy out of Russia. They're going to get the cheap grain out of Russia. They're getting massive discounts, and they're finding a way to move the oil, even though the pipelines aren't all up yet. There is, Power of Siberia 1 and 2 from Russia to China, but their oil imports from Russia are up 40-50% year over year. They're finding ways to transfer it ship to ship. So they're a massive manufacturing power. They find ways to do these things. So I think they see this as securing their northern border. They're going to get all the resources. They still have a very strong manufacturing economy. Their exports are up. Their domestic economy is in serious trouble due to the COVID lockdowns. When that ends, nobody knows, because there's still 1 billion and so people that have never had COVID, and that's not going to change. So when they get out of zero COVID is anybody's guess. We'll see what happens.
All right, Dan, let's talk metaverse and CBDC. Surveillance state communism on a blockchain is rolling out in China. Your thoughts?
Well, it's obviously a tool. China has so much surveillance powers already over the population. The last thing you want to do is go to a digital currency run by the central bank. But I think that's inevitable. They're pushing it hard. Cash has been dead in China for years. You can't get people to take cash. It's all renminbi over your WeChat application. So cash is already dead. They will move to a central bank currency. We'll see if they fully implement it or not. It has, it's really no different than any other currency. It's just on a centrally controlled currency. It's just on a blockchain. That's the only difference. So, but in China, you don't get to vote, so you don't really have a say in it.
Dan Collins, thanks for being on Max and Stacy Report.
Thanks, Max. Thanks, Stacy. Good to be here.
All right, and that's going to do it for this edition of Max and Stacy Report. And I want to thank our guest, Dan Collins, coming to you directly from El Salvador, land of the free, home of the Bitcoin. Until next time, bye, y'all.